What is up, Jaguar students? It is your friendly neighborhood math teacher, Mr. Allred. We are back at it here. We're on Unit 8, mini lesson number 2. We're going to talk about the circumference and area of circles today. Yesterday in math class, we talked about the area and perimeter of rectangles, trapezoids, and triangles. And today, all we're going to do is strengthen our knowledge and talk about circles and their circumference and area. You should be able to explain the parts of a circle and find their circumference and area by the end of the day today. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with the notes. We're going to talk about it right now. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is pi. I'm not talking about no apple pie or cherry pie. I'm talking about the mathematical constant pi. A lot of times you'll see this lovely squiggly line. This is the mathematical symbol for pi. And we'll need that symbol to discuss circles. We'll use it in both of our formulas today that we'll talk about. Okay, a pi is a constant, a mathematical constant, and what it is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's about 3.14159. You have a button on your calculator, or you can use 3.14 as pi when you're solving these problems, okay? The truth is that for every circle in the whole universe, okay, a circle even just like this one that I draw, if I knew its circumference, the distance around it, and knew its diameter, the distance across it, and divided those two things from any circle in the whole world, I would always get the same number. I would get pi, 3.14159. It's a number that goes on forever with no pattern, and we have a symbol for it that we use all the time when we talk about circles, okay? Circumference of a circle is the distance around it. You might think of it as the perimeter of a circle, and we will solve for the circumference of a circle using a formula, okay? That formula might need the diameter of that circle. The diameter is the length of a line through the center of a circle that touches both sides of the circle. It's important to note that it does go through the center of the circle, and it is the length of a straight line that goes through the center and touches both sides, much like this line I'm about to sketch here in purple. That is the diameter of that circle right there, and it goes across the whole circle and goes through the middle. Okay, the radius is the length of a line from the center to one endpoint of a circle. It's just half the diameter. This right here, this purple line I'm about to sketch, is the radius of that circle. It's half the diameter. You need to know what circumference and diameter are and what pi is to solve for the circumference of a circle. You can use one of two formulas. You can take 2 times pi times the radius, or you can take the pi and multiply it by the diameter to find the circumference of a circle. We'll talk more when you get to my station about why that formula works, okay? But right now, all we're going to do is we're going to solve for the circumference of these two different circles right here. This first one right here, it has a radius of 6. The reason that is a radius of 6 is because it only goes from the center to one endpoint, and that's the same definition we gave for radius. The formula that includes radius is 2 times pi times the radius. The radius of that circle is 6, so I'm going to substitute a 6 into that formula. And when I solve it, I can actually use my calculator and type 2 times pi times 6. The pi button is on the left side of your calculator. It's the 4th button from the top. It looks just like the symbol I just drew for you. If you multiply all those together, you get 37.699, 2 times pi times 6. And I rounded that to the nearest 10th place. I'm going to call it 37.7 meters. The reason I was able to just use meters and not meters squared is because the circumference is always a pure distance around a circle. So there's no need to square my units there. It's just a length. If I was looking at number 3, that number 3 is a circle. This line goes all the way from one endpoint to the other, and it goes through the middle. What's that called? That's right. That's called the diameter of that circle. The formula that I use for diameter to find circumference is taking pi and multiplying it by the diameter. It's that easy. If the diameter of that circle is 10, I'm going to take pi and multiply it by 10. And when I do that, I get 31.4159265. I rounded that to the nearest 10th place and called it 31.4 meters. That's how we find the circumference of a circle. There's 2 different formulas depending on what you have that you can use to find the circumference of a circle. Okay. If you want to find the area of a circle, you can use this formula right here. pi times the radius squared. We're always going to follow these same steps when we try to find the area of these circles. And again, that formula is pi times the radius squared. If I look at this first circle on number 1, it looks like pi is that, not pi, 4 is the distance from the center to one endpoint. What's that called? That's right. It's called the radius of that circle. So I can substitute 4 into my formula and do pi times 4 squared. The truth is that 4 squared is just 4 times itself, and 4 times 4 is 16. So I can use 16 there for my substitution after I do 4 squared. If I find pi times 16 on my calculator, it'll tell me that pi times 16 is about 50.26548. If I round to the nearest 10th place, what do I get? That's right, I get 50.3 inches squared. The reason I used inches squared there is because I was solving for the area of this circle, not for its circumference, but instead for its area. I needed to square my units. The second circle, if you look at it closely enough, it looks like 14 is actually the distance from one side to the other through the middle. That is the diameter of that circle. If the diameter of that circle is 14, then that means that the radius of that circle is 7. It's only half the diameter, like we said at the very beginning. We said the radius was half the diameter. Okay, so instead of using 14 in my formula that says pi times radius squared, I'm going to use 7 in my formula that says pi times radius squared. 7 squared is 7 times 7. The truth is that's 49. So if I do pi times 49 in my calculator, I get a humongous number like 153.93. I round to the nearest 10th place, and I call it 153.9 centimeters squared. Again, I squared my units because I was solving for area. Okay, those are the two formulas that we use, or really 3, to find the circumference and the area of a circle. And that's all I'm going to do for you here in this video. Okay, when you come to my station, we will talk about numbers 3 and 4. They're right there in the area part. We'll write our summary together, and then we'll look at numbers 1, 2, and 3. They're in the challenge section. If you feel like you can do them right now, that's fine. But we're going to do them when we come to my station. Okay, remember to stay classy and don't be trashy. Of all my students I've ever taught, you are one of them. Have a great day. Thank you very much for listening.